Welcome back, folks. Wow, what an election cycle this is turning out to be. There's so much going on that it's hard to keep up on all of the items and events that need to be discussed. So, with time and effort in mind, we're going to take a piece by piece approach to start with and hopefully wrap it all up in time for the end of this election cycle. Let's start closest to home with the village of Indiantown. Tam thought it would be informative to research corporate ownership and nonprofit organization involvement of each of these candidates to get a feel for what they're really doing in the community. Just for the record, we have researched all of the candidates and we will compile results for your review as time permits. Nobody here is getting paid for any of the work we're doing. To begin with, we'd like to discuss the current mayor's business affairs and nonprofit activity. So, why her first? Well, as you're about to see, it fits right in with the lack of standards and ethics that are demonstrated by the majority of the council and Howard Brown. It includes omissions that are required in filing documents that openly states it may cause her ineligibility if omissions and inaccurate information is reported. Ask yourself this: if we're able to find these emissions, shouldn't Jackie know about them too and have reported them on herself? I'm sure, though, that she'll just have to say, I'm sorry, and we'll all automatically have to forgive her, just like Howard Brown. Anytime he screws up and we say, I'm sorry, well, I guess that's enough. Miss Clark claims to be a devout Christian woman. She should understand that having to say I'm sorry for the same thing over and over does not reflect a Christian posture. You see, when we as Christians realize that our action is a sin and we ask the Father for forgiveness, well, that should be the end of that sin causing behavior, because we know that God is looking and he knows that we know it's a sin now. Instead, Mrs. Clark seems to apologize an awful lot for the same thing and covers for Howard Brown's excuses just the same. So spare us the lectures on being a good Christian as an excuse for her low standards of ethics and conduct as an elected official to the people. She should be held to a higher standard because she's the one making the laws for the people in her community. Before we begin, let's start here. As the masses rush in to call us racist and bigoted, keep in mind that what we're showing you is fact and public record. Also, know that we've never served on a white only council or a white only board for anything, unlike those that are serving on black only boards and Hispanic only boards. That is racist. Now, we want to remind you that this is all fact and public record. Tam knows an informed citizenry is essential to the health of our form of governance. So let's take a look at the facts. To begin with, Mrs. Clark listed a rental property, 14842 Southwest 168th Avenue, as a secondary source of income. What she failed to mention was the list of other companies she has ownership and board seats on that relate to other real estate properties she owns as well. This graph shows the list of her involvement. Let's take a look at it right here. The News Corporation was created in May of this year and is called New Land Development. In all, we found five active corporations that Jackie has ownership interest in, including one named Mega Land Buyers. Others include Clark Capital Holdings, S&J Elite Holdings, and Clark Capital Development. Then we looked at her nonprofit. Let's back up there for a second. Do all of those have a theme to them? Seems that Jackie has a real interest in how things are built out and what happens in the real estate market within Indiantown. Nothing wrong or illegal with that, but you would think some disclosure would be good up front. But hey, who are we? Then we looked at her nonprofit involvement, and one stuck out like a sore thumb. Let's look at these facts together. And these are facts. Here are some facts from past federal 990 EZ information followed for Indiantown Community Outreach, Inc. In 2012, a total of $79,938 was brought into the corporation. Let's just call it 80K to start with. And a total of 76,922 or 77,000 was spent on salaries, benefits, printing, etc. Jacqueline L. Clark was listed as the CEO and received a $38,791 salary plus bennies. They reported that attending fairs for the calendar year as fulfillment of their mission. Jacqueline also kept the books in this year. Here's an overview, and remember, we're basing our numbers off of the IRS 900 form she filed and signed. We're not making this up. Between benefits, salaries, and other compensation, over 81% that year of the money was spent not on mission, but on her. The bulk of the money came from the Susan B. Komen Foundation to raise awareness on breast cancer among Hispanic and Black women in Indiantown. Now, why we had to exclude other races is beyond me, but I guess some women are more deserving than others. $5,500 was spent on rent. Printing and postage took another 6K. This left less than 9% of the grant money received to be leveraged for the mission of breast cancer awareness. And not to say that they didn't do some awareness, because they did. As a person involved in the community, I served as vice chairman of the Juvenile Justice Council in Martin County and worked closely with the Martin County Children's Services Council as well. These organizations would never fund a group that had that high of an expense for operation and so little going to mission. Oh, and by the way, 2011 was a repeat of the same type of elitist dispersal. There are 7 years the nonprofit brought in less than $50,000, so they didn't need to itemize their money publicly. We have no way of knowing how much of the money went to Jackie directly for those years. For the years 2017, 19, and 21, there were no filings. Again, this is something that needed to be done according to the IRS and the law. Bad management and practices seem to be a theme that runs deep with Miss Clark. The nonprofit has been in existence since 2001, and that's according to state records. The IRS records do not reach that far back, however, and if they do, they didn't report for a lot of other years. Another NPO Jackie is involved with had their NPO status revoked because of procedural discrepancies. We have to ask, with all the information we found and have relayed to you, what questions does it create in your thinking? We want to know. So comment below and be sure to follow Tam to receive instant updates to your inbox. On our next list of NPOs, we'll look at Anthony Dowling's long list and Susan Gibbs Thomas NPO involvement as well. So keep your heads up, Indiantown, and know who you are voting for.